This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Hey, Bob, how are you? Looking forward to a trip down to Louisiana?
Yeah, I'm first road trip of the year. Always nice to go to Baton Rouge. Get good weather, hopefully.
You've covered a lot of these games, man. What is it about Arkansas LSU that just seems to make it? You never know what's going to happen in this series. You just never know.
Well, yeah, the last three games, as both coaches pointed out, have been 3-point games, and Arkansas, won down there. It's funny, LSU's won 2 3-point games in Fayetteville, and Arkansas has won a 3-point game in overtime in Baton Rouge. So that's kind of gone against the norm. I know LSU's a pretty big favorite. I guess about 17.5 points last time I looked, but I think it'll be a closer game than that. I don't know. Obviously, LSU should be favored at home. They're coming off a great win. Arkansas is coming off a frustrating loss, but I don't know if it's the proximity of the states or they did have some previous history before Arkansas got in the league. They played, earlier in the 20s and 30s and played a scoreless Cotton Bowl one year, I think in the 40s. So there's some history there and border states. So I think it's something both fan bases get into.
Bob, with this offensive line, how do you think that's going to hold up? Is that what you're going to be looking at first and early during this LSU matchup?
Yeah, if I'm Arkansas, that would probably be my primary concern is, how are they going to block LSU, especially he's now number 4, I believe, Harold Perkins, outside linebacker, who just was kind of a one-man wrecking crew last year. K.J. Jefferson was out, Malik Hornsby's in there, and one thing you felt about Malik was, he's got good speed. Well, Perkins might be a linebacker, but he ran down Hornsby 3 times, sacked him. I think it was I don't know if it was Hornsby, it's twice at least. Maybe he got Forte once too, but or Ford once too. But yeah, they got to account for him. And I don't know why, but LSU had him playing more on the inside in the Florida State game, which I think they figured out that's not a great idea. So I assume he's going to be moving around, rushing off the edge against K.J. Jefferson, who we know is a tough mobile quarterback. But they got to account for him. They're probably going to have to use their tight ends and running backs to help block him too. But you're talking about 2 pretty inexperienced tackles trying to block Harold Perkins, and that's not a good feeling to me anyway for Arkansas.
That's why I was going to ask. How different do you think this offense might look? I don't think the offensives look bad or inept or anything like that. We've had our moments, but how different do you think this offense could look schematically against LSU?
Yeah, I assume Rocket Sanders is not going to be ready to play. I don't know that. He has returned to practice. We saw him do not much of anything Monday and Tuesday, but at least he was out there. And Sam Pittman has basically said, now he may actually know, but he said, earlier in the week he didn't know if he was going to play or not. And my feeling is also, if you're not sure Rocket's ready, you don't put him in against LSU. So assuming they don't have Rocket, I think they need to, kind of try to establish some kind of run game with A.J. Green and Rashad Dubinion and to keep the pass rush off K.J. Jefferson as much as possible. Sam Pittman talked Monday about moving the pocket, getting A.J. on the move, which limits some of your passing options, because you're kind of more restricted to one side, but that might, you move the pocket away from Harold Perkins, right? Whichever side he's on, move the pocket to the other side. But that's something they could do. Like I say, but bringing in more chip in from the tight ends before they go out. We know Luke Haas has played really well, and he might get a. The thing about this guy, I know this is going to be his 4th start, but his first road start at Arkansas is at Death Valley at night, so that's going to be baptism by fire. I think Luke's probably up to the challenge because he's not your run-of-the-mill freshman, but they're probably going to have to hit some quick, shorter, quick routes because, KJ was under a lot of pressure, right? At BYU, I think sacked him 4 times and, forced him to fumble a couple times and he was under heavy pressure, so they might have to do some quicker hitting stuff, maybe run some screens, maybe run some draws to try to get that pass rush, so LSU just doesn't pin their ears back.
Bob, I think the defense has been a more consistent unit than the offense so far. You think this is a team that's going to need to win a couple of games defensively this year? I mean, you got to outscore your opponent. We know that, but they're going to need to win some games in the low 20s potentially.
Yeah, and the defense has shown an ability to produce points, right? They've had 2 pick sixes, and I realize it was against Western Carolina and Kent State, and also special teams, right? Isaiah Satania had a punt return for a touchdown. So, you can't count on getting a pick six and a punt return for a touchdown. Special teams score every game. But I do think they've shown the ability to score in different ways, or, those turnovers or special teams plays can get you short field, nice return, a block punt, forcing the guy to shank it, something like that. So I think they're going to need help from the defense and the special teams to either score or, give them short fields, have a shot at a game like this and maybe some other games in the future. I mean, they really have to play complementary football, especially on the road against these really, tough teams, as we've probably talked week after week about this brutal schedule they got coming up.
It's so different playing them in September. I mean, it felt different, I think, when Arkansas LSU moved off of Thanksgiving week because you were so used to that. But still, it wasn't the first SEC game. We still don't know everything, or I even think a lot about these two teams. It's only 3 games in. To me, the college football season doesn't really begin to take shape until you start getting into the conference schedule. So, I mean, how do these teams are matched up, obviously. They're different than the teams that played last year, different than any team that played on Thanksgiving weekend. It's just that makes this game different than any other time that these two football programs have ever played against each other.
Yeah, it's weird, for so long it was the last game of the year, the regular season finale, and a lot of times a lot was riding on it. Maybe the SEC West title or bowl bids or bigger bowl bids or something like that. Sometimes one team was trying to play the spoiler. Sometimes it was a coach's last game, like Danny Ford coached his last game against LSU. Houston Nutt ended up coaching his last game against LSU. I think Curly Holman on the other side coached his last game against Arkansas, maybe Jared DiNardo. So I used to say, I had a little joke that, they were playing for the boot, and then the coach would get the boot. Because there were 5 or 6 coaches who that was their last game on both sides of it.
Heck, remember, even 2 years ago, you had a coach who'd already been given the boot, and then he coached for the boot in Ogeron.
Yeah, Ed, and then, of course, I think it was John O's last game. So, heck, maybe it's 10 or 12. It's a lot of, and that's, in college football, a lot of times the last game of the year is that guy's last sometimes fired or agreed to leave, whatever you want. And they got a nice buyout, and he still coached. So it was a different deal, but it's very strange because Arkansas used to open up with Alabama a lot of times, so that was really tough. They have a tougher opener than LSU on the road at night. I mean, that's maybe he's got to go play at Ohio State or something in December. But of course, they're probably not going to open in December. But it's a real tough challenge for Arkansas. But I think about it, not very many people give them a shot to win. So to me, they can go in there and play loose and free and just try to play their best and see what happens. But I think the pressure's on LSU, right? Because LSU has national title aspirations, and they cannot afford another loss after losing to Florida State the way they did. So, there's pressure on LSU for every game from here on out. And I know they're at home; they're big favorites. But to me, if I'm Arkansas, I'm going in there, trying to play loose and free, and just try to upset them.
I mean, we all know that their offense runs through Daniels. He was 30 of 34 with 2 touchdowns last week, 15 attempts, 64 on the ground with 2 touchdowns as well. What do you think? What are we going to do on defense? How are we going to try to contain him?
Well, that's just a tough deal. Last year he did not have good numbers at all against Arkansas. I think that was kind of twofold. One, I think LSU saw early that Arkansas couldn't generate much offense without KJ, and so they played very conservatively, played not to lose because they felt like, the 13 points could win that game, and it did. and also it was really, really cold. That'll be a big difference. It might be, 75 or 80 for this game. It was about 30 degrees in favor last year. I know the LSU was drinking chicken soup on the sideline. I don't think they'll be drinking chicken soup or gumbo or whatever Saturday night. I think they'll be guzzling Gatorade and water. But, you got to try to keep Daniels in the pocket, which is easier said than done. You got to try to put some pressure on him. Sacking him will be very difficult because he's very elusive like KJ. He's not quite as big as KJ, but he's a very good, willing runner. And so I think it'll be interesting. Maybe they put a spy on him. That's basically what Harold Perkins did last year on Hornsby. And so maybe they have a spy on him. I think you have to be very disciplined, stay in your rush lanes. I'm not trying to sound like a coach here because God knows I don't know X's and O's. But I think you got to stay in your lane, not try to do too much, play contain. And if you don't get to him, get up and, bat the ball down. I was watching the game, last weekend. I can't remember which one it was, but, a guy was not getting great penetration, but he was able to jump up. He got in the passing lane, and then knock the pass down. So I think you've got to try to do some things like that, but basically you just can't give them all day to sit back there. So they also, it's going to be very hard to play man-to-man. We saw what Neighbors did to Mississippi State playing man-to-man. After the game, the LSU coach, Brian Kelly, basically questioned, why would you do that? Why would you play man-to-man against this guy? So, but Arkansas probably play some man-to-man. But, I think they've got to try to mix up their blitzes and not blitz all the time, but try to get as much pressure as they can with that four-man rush, which will be tough because LSU's got a gut. Just like everywhere else, they're good on that offensive. Former Sam Pittman assistant is their line coach now.
BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.